Okay, so this is the next stage of the process. So I had spoke to you guys in the last lab note that they've been entered into the database, into the computer, and once we give them an identity, we can start taking photos of them, so to provide a digital record. So I'll explain the materials I have laid out here for you and explain why digital records are important. And then you'll get to, I'll show an example of me taking a picture of one. So we have your basic camera body. We've got a 100mm macro lens and then a flash. So it's a fairly simple setup, somewhat expensive, but nowhere near as expensive as some camera equipment out there. So makes for a great hobby. We have a soldering holder here, and so it's just a clip that we clip the host plant to. And then we have a blurred background that kind of gives, in a picture, it looks like a natural setting. So we have different options depending on what kind of landscape. These ones are kind of torn up. But depending on the landscape we are in or the ecosystem, we can use different backgrounds. So next I will show you this process. Okay, so first step we do in this process is we take a picture of, we've assigned the numbers yesterday, so this caterpillar now has an identity, and I want to record that, make sure that I'm being careful with my record keeping. So we take a picture of this number, and now that number and any picture that follows is associated with that caterpillar. Okay. So the way that we set it up is that any picture after that number now corresponds to this caterpillar I'm about to photograph. So here we've got the caterpillar on the leaf. I don't know if you guys can see him. Great example of Crypsis because he's lined up right along a vein there. I'm not sure if it's focusing well, but you can see him right there, kind of a lighter green on the underside of the leaf. So it doesn't look to me like he's got any it doesn't have any bruising on it, so it most likely is not parasitized, but you never know. So this simply just may be a record of an interaction rather than yield any parasitism data. But in order to get parasitism data, we need to know, for example, parasitism rates. We need to know of how many individuals we've collected, how many of those were parasitized, and how many of those were not. So even though he doesn't have a parasitoid, he's important data. All right, so as you can see, I've clipped the leaf to the soldering stand, and I'm just going to position it and start taking photos. So one of my favorite things about this step is, especially when we're working with the citizen scientist group, they often have the impression that when they come to the tropics, you're going to see a bunch of really bright, huge caterpillars. Partly because that's what we put on the cover, you know, or the big, very showy caterpillars. But most of what we find are are smaller and to the naked eye look somewhat, don't have a lot of color or characteristics and morphological characteristics, but as soon as you use the macro photography, you see a whole new world of detail. So it's always an important lesson I use to teach the students, or even just the adult citizen scientists, that you know, most of what we understand is limited by the lens that we are using. So if you allow yourself to use a lens that zooms in, we tend to appreciate and understand things to a whole nother level. So anyways, here's the caterpillar, and one thing I didn't note before with the naked eye, I don't know if you guys can see there, is it has really long hairs on it. And you can see the details in, this isn't the best shot, but I just wanted to get a quick example for you guys. But you can see it's pro legs with the crochets. those legs will be lost after it goes through metamorphosis, and the only legs that remain when it goes through metamorphosis are these true legs right there. So we see the head capsule, we see the true legs, and then if I zoom in even more, and it's not, I don't know if it's very focused, but we see the spiracles. So those are what the caterpillar uses for gas exchange. And what's cool about this one is it's kind of translucent, so you can see all of those tracheals inside the body. And then this is the anal proleg, so this guy kind of just lays them out flat, which would be a helpful identifier probably, because not a lot have that. Huh. Very interesting. Something characteristic there. Anyways, so I will do this for all the caterpillars that we've collected. I try to get body shots, I try to get head capsule shots, anything that's going to help us identify it.